Of Dwarka, the royal city where Krishna ruled. The conclusion of Sri Rupa Goswami is that the devotees who are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokula or Vrindavan are the topmost devotees. Vrindavan is a transcendental place where Krishna enjoys his eternal pastimes as a boy, and it is considered the topmost sphere in all existence. When this Vrindavan is exhibited in the material world, the place is called Gokula, and in the spiritual world it is called Goloka or Goloka Vrindavan. A devotee who is attached to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to redirect his devotion to other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramachandra, knew that there is no difference between Lord Ramachandra and Lord Narayan, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramachandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many, many forms of the Lord, but Krishna is still the original form. Though all of the devotees of the different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is said that those who are devotees of Lord Krishna are the topmost in the list of all devotees. Shri Bhakti Samja Sindhu ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami ki jai. Go Premani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srmad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Text 47. 48. Well, I was told 47. Sorry, just do 47. Karmani arapate dehi. Karmani arabate dehi. Dehinatmanuvartina. Dehinatmanuvartina. Karmabhistanute deham. Karmabhistanute deham. Ubhayam tava vikta. Upayam tav epivikita. Karmani arabate dehi. Denatmanuvartina. Karmabhistanute deham Ubhayam tapavikata Karmanyarabhate dehi Dehanatmanuvartina Karmabhistanute deham Ubhayam tapavikata Karmanyarabhate dehi Dehanatmanuvartina Karmabhistanute deham Ubhayam tapavikata Karmanyarvate dehi Dehanatmanvartina Karmabhistanute deham Upayam tavarikata Karmanyarvate dehi Dehanatmanvartina Karmabhistanute deham Upayam tavarikata Karmanyarvate dehi Dehanatmanvartina Kamabhistanute deham Vayam tavavekata Ramaniyavarapate dehi Dehanantanavartina Kamabhistanute deham Vayam tavavekata Karmani, material fruit of activities. Arabte begins. Dehi, a living entity who has accepted a particular type of body. Dehina, with that body. Atma anuvartina, which is received according to his desire and past activities. Karmavi, by such material activities. Dhanute, he expands. Deham, another body. Ubhayam, both of them. Tu, indeed. Avivekataha, due to ignorance. Translation. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruit of activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus, he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. Please repeat. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruit of activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus, he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. Prabhupada Ki Jai. The living entity's evolution through different types of bodies is conducted automatically by the laws of nature in bodies other than those of human beings. In other words, by the laws of nature, Prakriti Kriyamanani, the living entity evolves from lower grades of life to the human form. Because of his developed consciousness, however, The human being must understand the constitutional position of the living entity and understand why he must accept a material body. This chance is given to him by nature, but if he nonetheless acts like an animal, what is the benefit of his human life? In this life, one must select the goal of life and act accordingly. Having received instructions from the spiritual master and the Shastra, one must be sufficiently intelligent. In the human form of life, one should not remain foolish and ignorant, but must inquire about his constitutional position. This is called Atato Brahma Jigyasa. The human psychology gives rise to many questions, which various philosophers have considered and answered with various types of philosophy based upon mental concoction. This is not the way of liberation. The Vedic instructions say, Tad Vigyanartham Saguru Avibhagachat. To solve the problems of life, one must accept a spiritual master. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shriya Uttamam. If one is actually serious in inquiring about the solution to material existence, one must approach a bona fide guru. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Bhagavad Gita 4:34. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master by surrendering himself, pranipatena, and rendering service. An intelligent person must inquire from the spiritual master about the goal of life. A bona fide spiritual master can answer all such questions because he has seen the real truth. Even in ordinary activities, we first consider gain and loss, and then we act. Similarly, an intelligent person must consider the entire process of material existence and then act intelligently, following the directions of the bona fide spiritual master. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurannuyitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The living entity who has received his present body because of his past route of activity may end the results of his actions in this life, but this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. The living entity receives one type of body, and by performing actions with that body, he creates another. Thus, he transmigrates from one body to another through repeated birth and death because of his gross ignorance. So in this section of the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj he's describing the transient nature of this material happiness that people are striving for in this material world. So he's describing how temporary everything is, that living beings are struggling for material things which are actually just temporary, and they've not really got much value because they're going to end with the end of the body or even before that. So material opulence that everyone's trying to acquire is temporary. So how much pleasure can we get from wealth and family life, nice house, luxuries, when our lifespan is perishable and at any moment it can end? So it's very, very futile trying to achieve this happiness through these temporary things. And even if we strive to go to the heavenly planets then and perform all the sacrifices, it's all still temporary and impure for the soul. So a materialist is designed to act to achieve happiness, which will diminish his distress, but actually what he's actually doing is just increasing his unhappiness. Because the materialist thinks that the pleasure from sense enjoyment or sense gratification is the real happiness. And as long as he's enjoying some sensual pleasures, then he thinks he's happy. But Krishna says that, and in the Bhagavad Gita, that an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses, O son of Kunti. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So Krishna says that all these pleasures that the materialists are trying to achieve are actually sources of misery, because they're going to bind us to this material world more and more and entangle us in repeated birth and death. And also such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise man does not delight in them. So if somebody's intelligent, he sees that these material pleasures, they have a beginning and an end. They're not eternal, they're not lasting. And so what is the point of trying to enjoy them? They're just creating more and more misery, because karma causes the material bodies and of the living entities. So the living entities are receiving different material bodies due to previous karma of fruitive activities, and this causes so much suffering. So the jiva receives one type of body as per his karma, and performing actions with that body creates another body. So in this way, one continues in the cycle of repeated birth and death. And not only by performing sinful activities do we suffer, but even performing pious activities we suffer, because in order to enjoy the results of those pious activities, we still have to take birth again. We still have to go through birth, death, old age, and disease. So it's still their suffering, even when we're trying to enjoy the results of our good activities, never mind our sinful activities. So, and in between this old age, this birth, death, old age, and disease, we're trying to enjoy some wealth and some family life, some pleasure. But again, we become more and more entangled in the actions and reactions of our activities. So it's like an ongoing cycle. So the human form of life has got developed consciousness, or it should have developed consciousness. So human psychology gives rise to many questions. What is the purpose of life? Why are there, what is this world about? Why are we living? What happens after death? So this human psychology is there, and people should be asking these kind of questions. But because they've been totally covered over by so many distractions and allurements of the material energy, especially in the modern day society, then they're basically covered over. They don't even try to inquire about these and other things. And if they do, they turn to philosophies that are really concoctions. So I remember when I was about 10 or 12 years old, I was wondering, what is the purpose of this life? And I couldn't understand why people were just wandering around doing all the things that they were doing and not questioning this. I just couldn't understand what is the point of it all, and why are people working so hard, and why are people learning so many things if at the end of it there's nothing? What is the point of all that? So I just couldn't understand all this, why people were not questioning these things, and I couldn't understand. I didn't get any answers from them. And I used to wonder what happens after death, what happens to the soul. And then when I was 12, I got the Bhagavad Gita and answered all my questions. It was like Krishna was just really giving me everything I needed to know in one book. So then everything started to make sense. The world started to make sense. The purpose of life started to make sense. So if we're not questioning, then we're not actually using the human form of life in the proper way, because it's like Prabhupada says, it's like a miser who's someone who has a great fortune but doesn't utilize it, just hoards it, doesn't try to use it in the proper way. So we have this valuable human form of life, and if we don't utilize it for increasing our Krishna consciousness, then instead if we use it for sense gratification, then we're actually misers in the real sense of the term, because we're not actually using this valuable human form of life in the proper way. So there's a really nice statement by Devahuti in the third canto of the Bhagvatam, and she says, "He whose actions do not lead to dharma, and whose dharma does not lead to vairagya or renunciation, and whose vairagya does not lead to the service of a Lord, which is bhakti, is just a living corpse. What a powerful statement Devahuti makes. So all our activities, if we're not leading to dharma or religious activities, and those religious activities or dharma are not leading to detachment from this world, and that detachment from this world is not leading to the service of the Lord, then we're just living like a corpse. That's what the statement in the Bhagavatam is. So this is actually the ultimate aim of the human form of life, is to understand that the purpose of life is to develop this service, this devotional service to the Lord. So in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, again, Kapila Dev also describes the glories of devotional service. And he describes that the mind is like a pivot. So the mind attached to material modes causes bondage, and the mind attached to the Supreme Lord causes liberation. And the best process of attaching the mind to the Lord is bhakti. So bhakti is actually the only auspicious path. And how do we get bhakti? Does anybody know? How do we get bhakti? Yes, nice answer. It's the association of sadhus. That's how we get bhakti. So Kapila Dev describes the qualities and activities of a sadhu. So here, Prabhupada in the purport is saying that, to actually solve the problem of life, we have to accept a guru, a great sadhu. So what are the qualities and activities of a sadhu? How do we know that we have a guru? How do we know how to receive or accept a guru that's like a real sadhu? What are his activities and qualities? Yeah, that's how we serve a sadhu. But how do we know who is a sadhu? There's so many people that consider. There's so many bogus gurus too in the world. So how do we know about it?
Vachivegam, Manasakrodavegam, Jivegam, Udarpastavegam, Aitan Vegam. If he's conquered the edge of the tongue, belly, and genitals, and controlled the edge to speak, in actions of anger, then we know he's qualified to make disciples.
Yes, very nice. So there's different characteristics of a sadhu. So sadhu is he's controlled the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. He's engaged in, so his primary characteristics that he's engaged in one-pointed devotional service, ananya bhakti, to the Lord without deviation, and renounce all material actions and relations to attain the Lord. So these are the primary characteristics of a sadhu, that is one-pointed. He's one-pointed bhakti. And the secondary characteristics is that he's tolerant, merciful, friendly to all beings, without enemies, peaceful, and abides by the scriptures. And the activities of a sadhu is that he's absorbed in hearing and chanting and remembering the Lord and preaching the message of the Lord. So if we seek the association, become surrendered servants of such a detached sadhus, then our bhakti will flourish, and we can start on the platform of prema, shraddha to prema. And by this bhakti, it quickly destroys the subtle body. So when we take foodstuffs, then the digestive fire in our body consumes all the food, burns it up. So in a similar way, the fire of bhakti quickly destroys the subtle body. That is this false ego, the mind intelligence. The subtle body gets destroyed and awakens us to the real self by this bhakti, process of bhakti. So in the Madhurya Kudamani, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes elaborately the process of Shraddha to Prema. It's good to read this book because it gives a very detailed map of the process, the journey from Shraddha to Prema, and all the problems that we may encounter on the journey. And sadhana bhakti is described that when we first start performing sadhana bhakti, then the creeper of devotion unfurls 2 leaves. And the first leaf is klesha agni, or destruction of suffering, and the second leaf is shubhada, appearance of good qualities or auspicious qualities. So we find that when we come to Krishna consciousness, we experience this very easily, that we start feeling relief from suffering, from material pangs, and we also start developing good qualities of a devotee. So if we have faith, the first qualification of bhakti is faith, actually. Unless we have faith, we're not going to go forward in our process of bhakti. So if we have faith in the Shastras, and we have a genuine desire to follow the scriptures to attain the goal, then this is actually the qualification that will progress. So then we start to associate with devotees. We have some small faith, and then we start to associate with the devotees. We visit the temple, start doing regular service, and we start making friendships with the devotees. And then we search out, this is sadhu sangha, so Shraddha, then sadhu sangha. And then we search out a spiritual master, someone who's advanced in devotional service and inspires us to perform devotional service. And under his directions, we perform devotional service. By following his instructions, we take vows, we follow the 4 regulative principles, we chant 16 rounds. This is the bhajana kriya stage. So we're following the instructions of the spiritual master nicely. And because of the process of bhajana kriya, then it brings about anartha nivriti. So the anarthas start coming up, and we start to see the anarthas, and then we try to get rid of them. So this leads to 6 types of unsteady performance of devotional activities. So the first one is false confidence, utsamahi. So a person just beginning devotional service thinks that this is quite easy. It's not much. It's not a lot of difficulty in this. He already thinks he's mastered everything. He already thinks that he's up there already. So this is just false confidence. And then there's sporadic endeavor, ganatarala. So sometimes practicing devotional service, sometimes we may perform devotional service very attentively, and sometimes we just neglect the practice because of lack of taste. So this is sporadic. It's from one extreme to the next. It's not really any steadiness there. And also this indecision, vyuda vikalpa. For example, we may think, should I get married and live a nice family life and Krishna consciousness, or should I just renounce everything and just go to Vrindavan and just meditate and chant Hare Krishna and just give it all up, just take sannyas? So this is from one extreme to the next. So this is like indecision. One minute you're thinking, oh, should I get married? Next minute, should I take sannyas? And happens to devotees in the movement. They're just about to take sannyas, then they get married. So this is one of the stages of unsteady devotional service as well. And then also struggling with Maya, Vishaya Sangara. So you're battling with desires for sense pleasure. Sometimes you become victorious, sometimes you get defeated. It's backwards and forwards like this for a long time. We maybe struggle. And also inability to uphold vows, niyamakshana. So we make resolutions. We think, okay, today I'm going to chant 64 rounds, and I'm going to observe Nirjala Ekadashi, and we're going to give up all association of worldly people, and then the next day we can't uphold that vow, we can't do it. So it's like there's no resolute determination. It's just like don't have the ability to uphold vows. And then you have enjoyable waves called Tarangarangini, and these are like weeds around the creeper of bhakti. And so we seek pleasure in these weed-like facilities and take pleasure in getting some name and fame in the name of devotional service, So we may, due to our devotional service, we may get some respect or name or fame or adoration, position. So these are all weeds that are growing along with the creeper devotion. And so we may enjoy these facilities that are produced from our devotional activities. But this is also unsteady devotional service. So finally, when we get free from all these unsteady devotional service, we come to the point of nishta. So then so the bhajana kriya produces anartha nivriti, or destruction of our bad qualities that obstruct us on the progress of bhakti. So finally, so finally we come to the point of nishta. So the different kinds of anarthas that we're trying to get rid of are arising from sometimes from sinful activities from the past, or some past pious activities, or offenses against the holy name, offenses against deity worship, or imperfectly performed bhakti. So these are the different types of anarthas that we overcome. And when we reach steady devotion, then most of these anarthas are destroyed at the stage of nishta. And that's when we can actually chant in a humble state of mind. So it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the stage of nishta is the stage where Tanada Pisanichana, that verse, Tanada Pisanichana, we chant in a humble state of mind, we offer respects to others, we try to avoid offenses, we learn we're tolerant. So we can gauge for ourselves how we're progressing in devotional service, because these are all guidelines, like a map on the road to prema. And then once we reach the stage of nishta, then we're more or less steady in mind and words and actions. And then ruchi, real taste for the name or hearing and chanting, develops. And this is followed by spontaneous desire for the Lord, which is asakti. And the sakti develops into bhava and then prema. So these are very, very elevated stage. And bhava stage is a very, it's when we become free from the three modes of material nature. And we've attained a stage where we're experiencing ecstatic symptoms. So it's not a cheap thing. And these ecstatic symptoms come at the stage of bhava. And without the mercy of Guru, we will struggle to advance in devotional service. So even with Guru helping us, we find it difficult. Even with the Guru, we find it difficult to advance in devotional service. We're trying to get rid of our narthas. We find it, not so easy. So how can we do it without Guru? How more difficult it will be. So it's important to understand the seriousness of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said that we need to be serious and sincere to make progress in Krishna consciousness. So through this whole process of Krishna consciousness, we will become free from unwanted qualities. We will develop good qualities of a devotee, of a sadhu. We'll learn to become tolerant, merciful, compassionate, humble, and then we can also help others. And this is the process that we have to learn to become a pure devotee, and then we also have to help others become pure devotees. This is the mission of the Lord. So we need to develop internally as well as externally doing service, we have to develop internally and develop proper consciousness so that we can help other living beings come to the same point. Otherwise, it's going to get stuck. We're all going to get stuck in this anartha nivriti stage and not go forward. And then how are we going to help anybody? We can't help ourselves. So Prabhupada wanted us to become pure devotees. That's why he's given us all these books, and he's given us the process of chanting the holy names so that we can come to the stage of pure devotion. And this way we can help so many others come to this stage. So the process of Harinam Sankirtan is so important because it's the holy name that's going to help us come to the stage of prema. We can't just automatically come to that stage without developing the proper mood of chanting. If we're just chanting on automatic pilot or trying to get the japa chanted and over and done with so we can do something more useful, then it's not really going to work. We have to learn to develop a proper mood of chanting with love, with the understanding of the meaning, understand the meaning of the mantra. Understand that actually the holy name is, everything is in the holy name. Everything is compressed in this one holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra. Just like nowadays we have everything compressed into like iPhones and iPads and iWatches and everything. So much information. We have all Prabhupada's books and a little iPhone, you know. So all that information is there. We can access it. So in a similar way, the whole spiritual world and everything, Krishna's, all his energies, all his potencies are within the holy name. It's all compressed in the holy name. And we have to access it through the holy name. There's no other way. So it's our way to actually the spiritual world, to access the spiritual world. So we have to learn to receive the holy name, just like, you know, when we're online, and if something happens, then we go offline. We can't. There's no reception, right? So we may be getting the holy name, but we have to be receiving it with a proper consciousness. And just like this microphone, it's not actually not hearing anything. It's just transmitting sound, you know. So it's not conscious. So similarly, the ear is actually just an instrument like the microphone. It's not actually hearing anything. So who's actually hearing is actually the soul. So we have to get free from all this interference so that the soul can actually hear Krishna. It actually absorbs Krishna's name. As long as there's all this interference and distractions, we're actually not receiving the proper benefit of the holy name. So in the Harinam Chintamani, it's described that just like the sun, the sun is all powerful, but when there's clouds in the sky, then we can't get to receive the sunshine. So similarly, the holy name is like the sunshine, and all our anarthas and our ignorance are like clouds that are covering the heart. So the pure holy name is actually very powerful. It's the most powerful, but because of our anarthas and the clouds in our heart, then we can't receive the full benefit of the sun or the holy name. So that's why we have to remove all these clouds of anarthas and ignorance to actually get the full benefit of the sunshine or the holy name. So this is actually our the work we have to put in. So Prabhupada says the human form of life is meant for tapasya. So we have to perform tapasya to get free from all these anarthas, ignorance in the heart, so that we can actually receive Krishna in our heart through the holy name. So this is very important that we connect properly to the holy name. Otherwise, it will take us a long time. You know, if we're just struggling, you know, trying to chant, trying to keep going in devotional service. Because Krishna is very attractive. So we have to, you know, Krishna is all attractive. It's just because we're jaundiced, we're not attracted so much to him. So in the same way, the holy name is all attractive, but because we're jaundiced, we can't taste that sweetness, So it's our fault. It's not that holy name is not sweet. So Rupa Goswami says that in the Nectar of Instruction, that the holy name is very, very sweet, but because of the jaundice of vidya, then we cannot taste it as sweet. But if we continue this process of chanting, eventually then we'll get rid of this jaundice condition. Just like if we have jaundice, then we're not, we can't taste anything sweet. But the real medicine actually is to eat sweet things. Then we can get rid of that jaundice condition. So Krishna's name is that sweetness that we have to keep taking. And eventually our jaundice condition goes and we can taste Krishna. The real beauty and sweetness of Krishna will be revealed. And then we'll become so attached to Krishna, attracted to him, that everything else will just remain, just not be attractive to us anymore. We have to be so full of Krishna. We have to be so full of Krishna that we're not attracted to anything else. Eventually we have to come to that point. Is there any questions or comments? Sorry.
It's still the process is still difficult. Never mind if you don't even. So I was wondering, is it supposed to be tough, or are we doing something wrong?
The Prabhupada said the process of Krishna consciousness is very easy, and it's also very difficult because the easy thing is we just have to surrender to Krishna, and that's difficult for us. So if we surrender to Guru, then the process is easy. But because we have attachments, material desires that we don't surrender, then it becomes difficult.
Some devotees say that if we just keep going, that we'll automatically make progress. Is that true?
Not mechanically. You can't just make progress by mechanical devotions. It has to be, with feeling, with love, So it's not a mechanical process. So we have to work on it. We have to learn to surrender. We have to learn to follow instructions. And depending on our sincerity and surrender, that's how much progress we will make. Because Krishna says, I reward them, those who surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So the more we surrender, the more we follow the process that Krishna has given us, the more we become attached to hearing and chanting Krishna's names and qualities and pastimes, the more easier it'll be for us. But if we don't have that attachment and we're still attached to the material world, then it's going to be more difficult. Well, that's part of the process. We have to understand Shastra, we have to understand this knowledge, and then we'll make progress. Because bhakti with jnana and vairagya, we make proper advancement. So,
Hare Krishna. It's taught that we should cut association with non-devotees, but as we develop our own Krishna consciousness practice, should we not maybe keep that association so that we can be an example for people, so that we can spread the word to non-devotees and give them that seed that, through association you can continuously water, so spreading the word to other people, or should we just cut ties with everyone so that we can focus on our own development, and then in time we can be that person to help others?
well, generally, one of the principles of the process is we take association of devotees and we avoid the association non-devotees. So it means that in the beginning we may not be very strong in our devotional practices. So we may become affected by their association. But it doesn't mean that we just, cut off all our ties with our family and friends. We can maybe reduce it till we become more strong in our Krishna consciousness, and then we can give our association to them and help them. So then we may not be affected so much by their association. That's good.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very nice class. We were speaking about importance of spiritual master today as well. I just wanted to ask, when we find a bona fide spiritual master, should we wait till we get attached to the spiritual master, or should we, like, as soon as we find a bona fide spiritual master, we should just take initiation?
Well, it's up to every individual. I can't speak for everyone, but generally we start hearing their lectures and we start, maybe associating with other disciples of that spiritual master and, see, how we progress in that way. And then, pray to the Lord to help us choose the right spiritual master for us. So some people can take 1 or 2 years, some take 10 years, some take many years more. So I think it depends on how serious you become to want to follow one spiritual master.
Yes, Srmad said that the disciple can test it. So there's a testing period where the disciple and the spiritual master can test each other. Of course, the disciple doesn't test it in some kind of like tricky way, but he looks to see, is he bona fide, according to Sadhu and Shastra? Is he parampara? He's authorized like that. And there also are ISKCON standards that one must follow before getting initiated, like recommendation must be there, because the spiritual master, he is authorized by GBC, so he is not like independent, so he has to take a recommendation, and the recommendations, they are quite set things, because it used to be in ISKCON that almost nobody, unless they were living in the temple, got initiated. Practically nobody got initiated unless they're living full-time in the temple. And then the pendulum swung the other way, where people got initiated without any kind of qualification. And then what was happening is people were getting initiated, they were falling away, and then that's a burden on the spiritual master. So they've put together some kind of standards that one should be, minimum standards, in order to become a spiritual master. First of all, the spiritual master has to qualify and get recommended and become authorized like that, but also the disciple. So even if the disciple is maybe not necessarily knows enough to qualify himself, then the ISKCON standards are saying, okay, you want to be a disciple, this is the minimum standards you have to be before you can do that.
Sorry, I was a bit late in the class. So the translation, the first sentence, the first part says, a living entity who has received his present body because of his past fruitive activity may end the results of his actions in this life. But this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material body. So, like, how can one end the results of his actions in this life? Through good karma, is it? Or what is the way one can end the results of his actions in this life because of his past?
Not sure. Does anybody else?
Because then it goes on saying, but this does not mean that he is liberated from bondage to material bodies. So if we say pure bhakti yoga, then you are free. Then if one is doing pure bhakti yoga, then it says like he is not liberated from bondage to material bodies.
From the Astica. I don't know atonement. You can get rid of certain things. But again, they appear again in another life. I don't know. Isn't really.
Yeah, if we look at the first part of the verse and then the second part of the verse, the answer's in the second part of the verse. Because first of all, the living entity who has received his present body because of his past food of activity. So he's got this body and he's got karmic reactions. So he may end the results of his actions in this life by living them out, getting his happiness and distress. But while they're living them out, then because it says that he does, it doesn't mean he gets liberated, because in the next part it says, so the living entity receives one type of body and performing actions with that body, he creates another. So while we are burning out these reactions, we're creating future reactions. So therefore, the only kind of action one can do is akarma or nice karma, devotional activities. And Lord Brahma, he explains that if one patiently bears the results of their karmic reactions, good or bad, because even the good has to be tolerated, like you were saying earlier on, then and continues with the devotional service, then in due course of time, all that will be left is devotional service. So we have to be doing devotional service, and that is that means that we don't get another material body. We're creating our spiritual body by that devotional service.
Sometimes a devotee, he finds it easy in the beginning to do devotional service because he's enjoying the results of his good karma. So money comes his way, facility, certain amount of fame. But then when the good karma wears out, then he gives up his devotional service. So the devotional service will take you through your good and your bad reactions. And you have to persevere and go beyond what may be easy. And then suddenly it's not so easy because your good karma's just run out.
It can work the other way as well, that if you're in distress and you come to devotional service, then you may take shelter. But then when good karma comes along, you might think, oh, now I'm not feeling so bad, now I can enjoy, and we go back out again. And then we start the karmic wheel going, plug the fan back in again.
So that's why we have to, it's not just that we turn to Krishna consciousness when we're in distress or when we need wealth or, we're inquisitive. There has to be some sort of knowledge and faith in the process and the goal that we're going to achieve. If we're just doing it for that reason, then we may just not continue on.
Yes, so that's why Krishna says to tolerate happiness and distress, not just tolerate distress.
Does that answer your question? Is there anything else? Is there anything else? Yeah, just stop. Okay. Thank you, Granthrashi. Bhagavatam.
Our grace Jagganatha Priya Devi Dasi ki